Thank you for joining our webinar. And this is, I think, the fourth or fifth one that we've done. We have a couple of really special uh, guest panelists tonight. We've got two professionals. We've got a landscape architect and a phenomenal interior designer, both of whom will uh, you want to consider to be joining the team, your rebuild team. And we will get started. Uh, The agenda for tonight, Karen will.
Yeah, so it's going to be divided actually into three different segments. So, what is Fire Smart Design? We'll talk a little bit about that. Working with an architect and a builder, some of the tips that will help you. Working with a landscape architect and working with an interior designer.
So, who we are. I'm James LeCron. I'm a licensed architect in both California and Hawaii, and also a native of Pacific Palisades from 1960 to 1990.
Yeah, and I'm Karen Ari Lacron. I'm also a licensed architect. I was a resident of Pacific Palisades for a shorter time between 92 and 94. So,
Hello, I'm Robert Niesner. I am a licensed general contractor for over 40 years now here in Southern California and specializing in residential construction, high end of all sizes, medium as well. And I hope you learned something from this webinar.
And we have Lisa Gimme. You introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Lisa Gimme, landscape architect, working here in Los Angeles for over 30 years. Very excited to be here sharing our experience tonight.
I'm Shannon Gem. I'm an interior designer and I'm based in the mountains of Malibu, Agora Hills and the Wisden Center. Been at it for longer than I care to admit, about 18 years, and it's a wonderful way to serve others.
Thank you. So, what is Fire Smart Design? We've done several webinars delving into this in great detail. We're going to do it a little bit more abridged version tonight because we want to have our guest panelists do their presentation and bring that in. But we'll do a quick overview of what Fire Smart Design is all about. It's really architecture, materials, active measures, and defensible space.
and we've never lost a home that we designed to wildfire.
This is a house that we designed in Santa Barbara. It survived the T fire. Everything else around it burned. We also did a design in Montecito that survived the Thomas fire, and then we did a rebuild in Ventura from the same Thomas fire. And then several years later, we did three Woolsey fire rebuilds in Malibu. So Fire Smart Design really starts with the architecture. Modern architecture, Mediterranean architecture, European, French, Spanish, they all have several things in common, and it's non-combustible, minimal eaves, and uh, non-combustible roofs. So materials. Materials are very important. We've explored this several times in previous webinars that you can look at the recordings on our website, but we like to use a building system called Gigacrete, and we won't go into it in detail tonight, but it's a highly fire resistant construction technology, and it can be anything from modest little small homes, any style of architecture, to large fancy houses. We've done Malibu, Los Angeles, all over the state, and also Hawaii with this product. Um, Non-combustible siding. You can have traditional look, but it's a Fiber cement siding. It does not burn. It looks like traditional wood. And lately, for the past 10 years, we've been using a very high-end aluminum siding that is non-combustible and is Class A fire rated. And it also has a stained look of wood. Very beautiful product and very durable. Class A roofing.
Here's an example of a few roofs right now that you'll see all over. It's very, very good to be using in a home that you want to protect from fires. The clay roof, a concrete or slate tile roof. Here we have some metal roofs that are all Class A rated. And believe it or not, asphalt shake roofs are also have an A compensation roofing material.
Yeah, and these are actually very economical. So Class A roofing is mandated by code, but there's lots of options. The other weakest link to the building envelope is high quality dual pane tempered glass windows. This is very overlooked. It's not addressed very well in the fire codes and the building codes. But we go over and above and just advocate that you spend the money on the windows. That's the weakest link in the building envelope. The code requires a dual pane window, one pane being tempered glass. We go above and beyond that. We have dual pane fire rated laminated glass in a very heavy metal frame. You can also use a wood frame window that's metal clad. Um, but you want to spend the money on the windows. One thing you have to avoid is the vinyl windows. It's not addressed by code. They just talk about the frame or the glazing. It has to be dual pane. But if the window's frame is vinyl, you can see what happens.
Ventilation is very, very important, and fire really has a excellent way of getting in there. So you've got to be very careful. To date, these are ventilation that's being used where you can see how flimsy that is. In addition to that, another sample is this. I'm sure you've seen them all around before. What you should be using is a product like this. It's I hope you can see that.
Kind of
What's
fading in and
happening?
out there, Bob, but
What's happening
but you
here?
see the picture on the side. So
Okay. Well, sorry about that. I don't know why it's not showing up. But the picture that you see in front of you, the on the right-hand side, this is a vent where the flames have to go in those holes and then snake through it. And at the last end, there is a mesh, which makes it extremely difficult for flames or fire of any kind to get in. You can see we've got roof vents, you've got eave vents. It's a very important part of your making your house safe.
also, the everything else on the site, your decks, your landscape, hardscape, everything has got to be non-combustible. So no wood decks, no wood pergolas, trellises, anything like that. There are a lot of good products that are actually manufactured products that look like wood that are Class A fire rated. So everything, fences, everything on site has got to be a Class A fire rated, non-combustible product. So in addition to the architecture and the passive measures and materials, there's active measures. One of the up and coming systems, and there are several companies now that do this, is an exterior fire sprinkler system. These are very, very effective. They're automated. You can set it and forget it. When the fire approaches your house, they will come on and turn your house into a big ball of water. Um, they can be controversial though because you don't want to connect to the city water. You saw what happened with the fire hydrants losing pressure. Um, it's you need your own source of water, and we'll get into that in the landscape portion too. You can have water features on site. Swimming pool is excellent, and then you have to have a source of your own power, so a generator, and all of these can be built in. So you have water and you have power, and an automated system that will activate and make your house completely self-reliant. You don't have to be there to fight the fire. An option is also they can put a tank in the ground that has a Class A foam, similar to what you see at the airports when there's a plane crash. That instead of doing water, it will bathe your house in a fireproof, non-toxic foam. So we're going to just briefly go through working with an architect and a builder. We advocate building a team at the very beginning. You're probably working on a budget, maybe dictated by the insurance, and we work diligently to work within that budget. And we advocate bringing in the builder. We work with Bob at the very beginning in the design phase, and that way he can keep the project on budget. And you will also be have a builder on board. Right now, architects and builders are becoming overwhelmed with the number of fires that have occurred, and so the the plan check is starting to get overwhelmed. There have been, gosh, I don't know, 1,700 applications. Very few permits have been granted. We understand there's about 170 permits that have been granted. Most of those have been projects that were actually in the pipeline before the fire. The city is going to get overwhelmed. It's taking about 55 days right now for plan check, and that's just going to go up. And so having a builder on the team during the design phase allow Bob to prepare a preliminary cost estimate. And we also advocate having a landscape architect and an interior designer on board at the very beginning so that as we go, Bob can constantly prepare a target budget.
What I do when I work with Jim and Karen is I prepare a preliminary target budget based on my experience and local conditions, with recent construction costs that may be going up pretty quickly. So we've got to get going and as soon as possible. This is an example of the first page of oftentimes 3 or 4 pages of a very detailed estimate. In this case, it's a preliminary estimate. And as we get down the road, I will turn that into a final solid number that hopefully meets your budget. If not, we go through it and see how we can get it down in various locations.
So once the budget's established, the builder will work with the owner, you, and the architect to ensure that the design stays within that budget. We'll make changes based on what the cost projection is looking like. And then what this does with the team approach, we say don't wait until the old-fashioned way of doing it would be you would hire the architect and the designers and all of that and do a complete set of plans and then put the job out to bid. Oftentimes you find out it's way over budget at that point, and then you need to start over. We're very adamant about staying on the budget that you have to work with. And the problem is with the scenario now with these fires is contractors are coming from all over the country, and they're not local, and they're quoting prices that are unrealistic, and they're taking advantage of the situation. Don't believe low quotes. The insurance companies want to hear it because they don't want to pay out, but it has to be realistic. And what happens if you go with a low bidder that's not local? They can't compete, and they can't complete the project, and they'll walk away in the middle of it. We've had it happen. This is one client's experience with the Woolsey fire. We just finished their house, and it was a Gigacrete project. He was adamant about bidding it out, and he went with a low bidder from out of town.
The contractor I picked was the wrong contractor. Made the wrong reasons, picked him for the wrong reasons. Picked one that was a reasonably priced rather than one that was really good. And I would say to everyone, pick a well-known contractor. The one I started off with was horrible. He was a contractor from Northern California. Another big mistake, was a local Northern California up in Paso Robles.
So now we're going to turn it over to our guest panelist and talk about working with a landscape architect. Very important.
Great. Well, thank you all for joining us today. It's appreciate the opportunity to share what we have learned from the Palisades fire. People faced with rebuilding are understandably focused on architecture and construction. The planning and construction of the house is very time consuming, but I think Jim and Bob have both done a really good job of explaining the advantages of working with a team. Oh, can you go back, please, James? So we've worked in the Palisades a number of times, and I just thought it would be interesting for people to see this map and to understand how variable the results were from the different locations in the fire. You can see the point of origin there, just north of the Palisades Village. We had several projects that are remained unscathed. Those are all shown in with the green symbol. Our two projects in the alphabet streets were both destroyed. That's number 4 and 5. I want to focus on project number 1 today. Okay, let's go to the next one. This is the house before we did any work. It was built in 1940, has a footprint of 1,500 square feet on a 6,500 square foot lot. And you can see here the entry is to the side, and there's this kind of raised area in front of the house. This is the one and only project where the client approached us and was adamant about building a garden before he remodeled or expanded his home. And that is a one-of-a-kind thing for us. So this project is near and dear to our hearts. Okay. This is our master plan. So in accordance with owner's wishes, we built a outdoor living room in front of the house. There's a patterned concrete driveway and a small terrace located between the house and the studio garage. Next. And I've got a few images of what it looked like after we built the project. You can see the new entry with a little entry gate. Go ahead. This beautiful Japanese maple that the owner loves, which anchors the front door. Next. And then this is his outdoor living room, which replaced that lawn and gives a private space outside and then also a beautiful view that you enjoy from the interior of the house. Next. We went on a great nursery expedition to pick these beautiful crepe myrtle trees. This is truly a 4-season tree where you get flowers, you get incredible fall color, and then you also have this beautiful, beautiful structure and bark. Next. And here's the terrace in use. And of course, the most important aspect is that Chandler, the dog, approves the design. Next. That's the back terrace. Okay, next. So on January the 7th, the catastrophic fire started and it consumed the landmark Robert Bridges house, which is located directly across the street from our client's property. Next. And this is a close-up view of how the fire affected this part of the Palisades. Michael's house is west of where we show number 1. And the house to the north and the south were also saved or preserved during the fire. And the Bridges house is just across the street. And then to the west, almost everything was wiped out, with the exception, you can see a little gray roof there. That's a brand new build that still stands. Next. So this is the patio after the fire. You can see the Bridges house behind the layered hedges there. The paving all intact. The layered hedges are partially burned. Next. And then this rubble is where the studio garage was located. Next. And then looking back to the house, this is the strangest thing. You can see that the garage was completely destroyed. There's the neighbor's house standing there, the two-story house. The fire came up to the back of the house and scorched it and broke windows, and then just for some reason stopped, leaving the entire contents of the house intact. So we're helping the owner make a claim for his damaged landscape. And this is the planting plan where we documented everything that was burned in the project. So it's amazing that all the trees that we planted survived the fire. The damage was mostly to the hedges, and the rosemary did not do well. The podocarpus hedge burned. It seems as though the fire came from two different directions. So from the front, the Bridges house, which is across the street, and then from the back, where the entire Palisades neighborhood was really obliterated. And so the owner really thinks that it's very possible that the neighbor's oak tree, which you see at the top of this image, played a substantial role in diverting, perhaps accepting embers from the Bridges house. Nobody can know for sure, but it's a miracle that his property survived. So let's talk about planning for fire resilience, and that includes understanding the zones, fuel modification, hardscape, planting, and maintenance. So this exhibit of ignition zones for high fire hazard areas shows the zones around the structure and how they are to be treated. And on the right, you see kind of the pattern for a very large property. Zone 0, which is labeled here, is the first 5 feet around the house. And there are some fairly draconian proposals out there right now that would not allow any in-ground planting within that Zone 0 area. And what I like about this diagram is on the left-hand side, you can see what the impact would be in the highly urbanized areas characteristic of the alphabet streets, for example. Basically, you would have very few trees between the properties. So zones 1 and 2 are irrigated and maintained landscape. And then zone 3 is where the fire department may require fuel modification. Okay, so then the next one, this shows how zone 0 would apply to Michael's house. Our client, he would not have a Japanese maple or any foundation planting if that most severe set of rules were to be applied. Okay, next. So what will happen in zone 0 is still under discussion. The Pacific Palisades Community Council is seeking a nuanced interpretation of what will be allowed. And I'd like to read one paragraph from this really great letter that the council has put together. They acknowledge the importance of regulation for public safety, but then they also say, we also seek to preserve our beautiful urban forest to the maximum extent possible and consistent with public safety. Many trees and other landscaping emerged intact from the Palisades fire. Based on experience, we believe much of this vegetation was critical in preventing structure destruction. Community members are very concerned that the adoption of the current proposed regulations would effectively result in a barren landscape with little or no protection from homes. And you can find this letter online and add your signature if you agree with that sentiment. Okay. So fuel modification is very different than just brush clearance. Many of you will be familiar with the annual notices that come to cut down the grasses that you may have on your property by May 1st. Fuel modification is a strategy for the selection and placement of plants to reduce fuel loads. So this is a project that we worked on in Mandeville Canyon, a large project, 6 developed acres within a box canyon, and then surrounded by many, many acres of wildland. So the fire study that was commissioned by the owner gave us guidelines for how to treat this property. Next. So one of the things the consultant studied was what is the relationship between topography and the natural landscape and then the planted landscape next to the building. Next. So one of his recommendations was to remove all the fuels underneath the native oak canopy, which you see here. And then he also developed a detailed palette of plants. These are the bad actors, okay? And they're a mixture of native and invasive species. I'm sure everybody has seen these when they've been walking on trails around the community. These are things that are highly, highly flammable that should be removed. Next. So Jim and Bob both touched on the importance of having Class A materials in the building, and that is also the case for the landscape. Next. So there's many, many ways to do that. Using poured in place concrete around a project is one way to do that. And that can be either relatively plain or textured, as you see here, this project in Bel Air. Next. And then this one is a small project that we did with Kofka Fakos. They designed the ADU that's on the right and remodeled the house. And here you can see the use of pebbles as a paving that is fire resistant. Next. So both Jim and Bob touched on how water features can be not only beautiful, but useful in a fire situation. Next. So, you'll have your swimming pool and then the team can help you figure out how can that be used in the case of an emergency. Next. And these elements, can be of various sizes and still have utility to you in combating a fire. Next. So planting, of course, is of extreme importance in creating a resilient landscape. So I want to talk about the native palette and our ember catching heroes, which we found our trees to be, and then fire resistant plant selections. So our native landscape is fire adapted. I'm sure everybody's been reading a lot about that, hearing a lot about that. This is a project that we designed in Prospect Park neighborhood. About 50% of the tree canopy there is our native oak trees. And, you can create wonderful landscapes within this situation. Next. So it has been recognized that the trees are playing a role in not only providing beauty and providing shade, but actually catching embers. So these are the trees recommended closest to the house. And then in the next slide, you see these are the real hero trees, the oaks, the sycamores, the magnolias, many examples of these trees basically intercepting the fire as it came toward houses, both in the Palisades and in the Eden fire. Next. And there are a wide variety of plants to utilize within your landscape that are fire resistant. Their common characteristic is that they retain a lot of water and they don't have any volatile oils that increase combustibility. Next. And you can achieve a whole variety of different feelings with these fire resistant plants. This particular slide shows a more tropical kind of a character. Next. And then maintenance. We talked about that at the beginning, the importance of the active measures. So this is basically keeping everything, reducing the fuel load by being very consistent about pruning, about removing any kind of dead leaves, and cleaning out your gutters, of course, either having them covered, not having them, or keeping them clean. So I wanted to conclude by talking about where we might get our inspiration for Firewise landscapes. And it seems to me that that inspiration can come from our natural environment and from design traditions here in the West, where we have this kind of expansive feeling of space. This is a project that we did in Bel Air, where you can see the beautiful ridge line, and we're keeping the landscape quite open, and it is accented with natural boulders and with fairly sparse use of succulents. This is a Neutra house, Coon 2. You can go ahead, Jim. So again, the use of natural boulders and this carpet of zoysia grass, which is adjacent to the living room. Next. And another Neutra in a more urban setting in Long Beach with an outdoor living room. And again, sparse and kind of sculptural planting that complements the house. So thank you. I'm really pleased to be part of this dialogue and hope I can answer any questions after Shannon's presentation.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
So now we're going to have our guest panelist, Shannon Jim.
Hi, I'm Shannon Jem. I'm an interior designer. I thought that when we talk about rebuilding from a fire, we're sensitive to the fact that it is not a choice. This often our clients come to us because they're inviting a big creative endeavor, and this is different. So what we have developed over the years, we started working on fire lost projects being rebuilt back in the Thomas Fire and the Hill and the Woolsey and now the Palisades, of course, and the Eaton. And what we found is that we needed to develop a method that was sort of on autopilot for the clients until they had the administrative bandwidth to deal with the project, because there's so much to do. So interior design is the art and science of enhancing the interior of a building to create a functional and aesthetic. And this is the kind of thing we provide. You're seeing a design deliverable that has floor plans and elevations, and it has a list of all your materials. It also has all of the window coverings and all of the, I don't want to stress you out, but all the drapery rods and the rings and the handles and the knobs, those need to be selected, all the tile, all the paint. So that gets put in a document that is appropriate for the build team after it's been through reflection with your architects and your whole team all together. And then, of course, we do the fun stuff. We do the installing of all that furniture that you've purchased and we procured for you and sent to a warehouse. And then it's in your home. There are some costs associated with interior design. I'm going to share real data. I aggregated it from a group that I'm on the board of directors of, a nonprofit called the Interior Design Community. It's about 5,000 active members in a private group, and we speak very openly. And so I'm going to tell you some numbers that may not be anyone's favorite, but they are the data that's needed to communicate most effectively with insurance companies and others who may need to know the true cost of rebuilding a home here in Southern California. So when I polled the designers in the group, I found that most designers are saying that they're going to spend between $75 and $100 per square foot for the furnishings. And there was some talk in the comments about, does that include the window dressings? And for the most part, people said yes, that includes at least shades and drapery in the primary. But it's about $75 to $100 a square foot. And then we talk about the design fee because, of course, it's a for-profit business. So this is the soft cost of your interior designer. And that is between between 12 and 18% of the overall build budget. So 15% was the prevailing number. Okay. So now you know roughly what it costs and you can plan for that. Sometimes people use a designer after an experience like this because they've done pieces of a home, but never the whole home all at once. Homes' interiors have become really well regulated and they're fairly safe. So they have non-combustible materials. They have all sorts of incredible materials that are clean air. So we don't want to install anything toxic in your home, of course. So I don't know, I sort of lost the slide that I was on, but so when we learn that visual simplicity is desired after the trauma that you might have been through. And so we seek to serve simplicity with that California casual feeling, but not boring. That can be a gut reaction of like, I just want everything plain, plain, plain and white. And that doesn't ultimately serve the clients in most cases. I mean, color notwithstanding, of course, composition and texture and all these things need to be present. Just the basic rules of beauty need to apply. So I have worked with psychologists to help me a little bit to understand how to best serve the trauma in this sensitive situation. And then we look at things like how interior designers can ruin the work of great architects and make it less safe in the shell, or great landscape architects. And so I want to talk a little bit about that. Here's a slide that talks about exterior furnishings. There's a stone house here with a wood roof. Of course, we wouldn't do that wood roof here, but you see that those are some very beautiful wood Adirondack chairs. I love them. They're so great. I would never use them. No designer should be installing them onto a patio in a very high fire severity zone. You can see that the architects did a great job in this Malibu home with the, non-combustible materials. And then the furnishings that you see there are fire sensitive. They're fire resistant. Those are saturated woods that have fire retardant in them. The rope is treated, it's all treated, and it's also light enough that if the client felt more comfortable and they were traveling during the high fire severity zone time, that it felt like it was going to be red flag, they could bring it inside. It's nice. So that is just one strategy, but there are so many others. We're never going to add a wooden trellis onto a fire resilient home. That it's not going to make sense and it could harm you in the long run. So that's a local thing that all designers here know not to do incorrectly, right? This is a beautiful interior plaster. Sometimes, again, serving this clean look, this interior plasters can be really handy and look gorgeous and still have character. Some of that craftsmanship and charm that was present in the housing that was lost can be replaced, and it can be replaced by beautiful things sensitive to your budget. So you might use a really special handmade tile like this on your backsplash, but you might not use it everywhere in the entire primary bathroom. That kind of thing wouldn't be a great budget strategy and probably wouldn't fit into the allowances. So we're going to have allowances for you for what materials cost, so that when your architect and your builder and your landscape architect or the whole team is working, we're all on the same page about what pieces of the budget go where. So budget allocation. All right. Here's some more interior plaster for those clean looks, but you can see how composition played a role here, and we did some fun things. When a build is really well appointed, it's so inspiring. So at the end of the process, you might look around and say, oh, gee, I really wish that I had taken a little more risk or had done something a little more fun. So hopefully your design team is sensitive to that, and they will have made a plan where there are some fun decisions left. Like this wallpaper and, the color on the doors. These aren't things that need to be picked tomorrow. And you might have a bit of decision fatigue. A lot of things have to be decided. These aren't like critical, oh my gosh, it's going to blow your budget open or cause poor Bob to have to move, whatever. This is just a beautiful decorative element and the kind of decision we love to say, these are things earmarked for when our client is done with the big administrative burden of all you have to do with insurance and other administrative tasks. So that is the the basic what for of interior design in terms of a rebuild.
Thank you, Shannon. Yeah, it can be very actually comforting to work with an interior designer if you've lost everything in your house, all your furnishings, all your artwork, all of that, to have someone in the know come in and guide you through making your new rebuild house a true home.
Yeah,
So
to
thank
feel special and
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So thank you guys very much. Now, if a lot of the information that we've done before is on the website, Fire Smart Houses. There's a page there that has all our previously done webinars that you can look at. A lot of good information there. We have private insurance adjuster. We had Andrew Dennis, founder of Gigacrete, going through in detail.
Rise Palisades
Yeah,
for
Rise
soft costs.
Palisades Fund to help with the shortcomings of your insurance. And also we had Mike Easton with several financing options. So there's a lot of good information there. We encourage you to go to that website and review those past webinars. Um, all our information is here. All of us are available for complimentary consultations to help you through this process. We look forward to working with you and getting your lives and your homes back whole again. Palisades is near and dear to our hearts, and we want to help everybody get through this process. And I know we focus on the Palisades. That's just because that's where we were from, but where everything applies to the Malibu and the Eaton Fire in Altadena as well. And we're here to assist in any way that we can.
And hopefully this webinar gives a bigger picture of getting how important it is to get the team together early and to really keep things on budget. The more we know with finishes or allowances from your insurance company or whatever you're working with, we know that. So Bob can put those numbers in so we can see the budget, because I know a lot of people with the insurance are very concerned about being over budget and not being able to finish. So we worked from the beginning with the whole team, and having that team approach, I think, really lends itself to a great project. We try to make it interesting and fun, but everybody has their expertise that we marry together to make the best project for you guys.
Well said. Thank you, everybody, and have a good evening. And we'll send you information on the next webinar probably in 2 or 3 weeks. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.